Hi AMDS, it's time for another training. This one's going to be on the ADAPT program. ADAPT stands for Alcohol and Drug Abuse Prevention and Treatment. So the objectives for the ADAPT program are to promote readiness, health, and wellness through prevention and treatment of substance misuse and abuse. It's also to minimize the negative consequences of substance misuse and abuse to the individual, family, and organization. As you can imagine, increased substance use contributes to lots of negative effects on us and our families. It'll also provide comprehensive education and treatment to individuals who experience problems attributed to substance misuse or abuse. And it's also used to restore function and return identified substance users or people who use substances to unrestricted duty status, or to assist them in their transition to civilian life if that's what's appropriate. So the Air Force has 5 methods of identifying people who use substances in the service. Some methods are the same as you would find in any employment, civilian or otherwise. So the first one is a medical care referral. So if medical personnel identify that someone is using substances by observing them under the influence or suspected to be under the influence of alcohol, if they receive treatment for an injury or illness that may be sustained as a result of substance use, they are suspected of abusing substances, or they're admitted as a patient for alcohol and drug detoxification. It could also be a person could be identified by the commander. So the unit commanders would refer all service members for assessment when substance use is suspected to be a contributing factor in an incident. Such as reporting for duty under the influence, public intoxication, DUI or DWI, spouse or child abuse, or maltreatment of others. Also, the most apparent one is through drug testing. So Air Force Reserve conducts drug testing of personnel on a random basis. And so all military personnel are subject to this testing regardless of grade, status, or position. Military members can also receive an order to provide a urine sample at any time. Military members who fail to comply with the order to provide a sample are subject to punitive action under the UCMJ. A person might also be identified as someone who has been using substances because of medical purposes. So the results of an examination where they came up essentially positive for a substance may also be used as a way to identify someone. The last, and hopefully the direction that you would take if this is something that would apply to you, is self-identification. So Air Force members can self-identify to the unit commander, first sergeant, or a military medical professional. The self-identification is reserved for members who are not currently under investigation or pending action as a result of an alcohol-related incident. So speak up before something bad happens. An Air Force member can voluntarily disclose evidence of personal drug use or possession to the unit commander, first sergeant, or a medical professional. The commanders are granted limited protection for Air Force members who reveal this information with the intent of entering treatment. Commanders, if a person self-identifies, commanders cannot use this voluntary disclosure against a member in an action under the UCMJ or when weighing characterization of a person for separation. If we are in a geographically separated unit, so there's not an ADAPT program on your base, the unit could go through local services, or they could refer you to an outpatient civilian provider. Unit commanders can put people on orders in order to receive the initial assessment and treatment if that's appropriate for you at that time. Again, if a commander chooses not to place a member on orders, the commander may refer the person to non-military mental health provider or substance disorder treatment, or any other recommended treatment. So why am I the one talking to you about this? Well, when I first came into the unit, we were doing our training, and I was asked to go ahead and provide the training. And I said yes because I've actually been through this program. 20 years ago now, so my first year in the Air Force, I was caught drinking underage. I made the decision while I was in tech school to drink out at a local bar just off of Shepherd. I was 20 years old, not old enough to drink at that time, and so I was caught, and ultimately I was referred to the ADAPT program in order to save my career. I did get an LOR UIF. I was phased back to phase 1 day 1 in tech school right as I was about to graduate, but I had to go through the ADAPT program in order to make sure that this wasn't something that was going to really interrupt my entire career. And luckily I was able to successfully complete the program prior to graduating from tech school, and went back to my unit 1 year later. My UIF was torn up, and I've had no issues since. So just remember, this is something that can happen to anyone. Please self-identify. It's okay. It's okay. We would rather you have the treatment than not say anything at all. People who have mental health diagnoses, a lot of people also have co-occurring disorders where you are essentially self-treating with substances for that mental health diagnosis. And that's very common. And so we want you to be able to self-identify if that's something that you are struggling with. So hope you've enjoyed this training, and there is not a quiz. Surprise. Hope you're enjoying your virtual UTA.